Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Weird Disney Cars Diecast Errors and Inconsistencies. The name is pretty self-explanatory. Without further ado, we have 10 more Disney Cars Diecast Errors and Inconsistencies to cover today, so let's get started. In the last episode, I covered 2 examples of the screenshot used on the Cars Toon diecast packaging not matching with the diecast. I talked about how the Nurse Corey diecast uses an image of either Mia or Tia, and then, of course, I went over the whole Rodney the Rocker fiasco. But like I said in that last episode, those 2 are certainly not the only cars to have a screenshot that doesn't line up with the diecast included. Another example is the Ice Screamer's Biggest Fan. Of course, in Monster Truck Mater, we see the Ice Screamer's Biggest Fan become the Tormentor's Biggest Fan, and he has a diecast variant, both a Tormentor fan variant and an Ice Screamer fan variant. While the Tormentor's Biggest Fan diecast has an accurate screenshot showing us a good look at the Tormentor's Biggest Fan, the Ice Screamer's Biggest Fan variant of him instead includes a screenshot of the Ice Screamer himself. Now, I don't know why they did this because we have a perfectly good look at the Ice Screamer's Biggest Fan in the short. Just like with the Nurse Corey last episode, even more so because the Ice Screamer's Biggest Fan has a speaking line. We get a very good look at him, but for whatever reason, they didn't use that image of him and instead used an image of the Ice Screamer. So by that logic, shouldn't the Tormentor's Biggest Fan variant use a picture of the Tormentor instead? Moving on, let's talk about High Impact, a background demolition derby racer in the Thunder Hollow sequence of Cars 3. She, and yes, High Impact is female, as are several of the other demolition derby racers, but their diecasts don't have the defined eyelashes like they have in the movie, but that's a discussion for another time. You can see, taking a good look at her artwork, that her teeth are pretty damaged. They're all chipped. Looks like she's missing a few, but her diecast does not reflect this. It seems she's gotten some dental work before being released as a diecast. Despite this, her mini racer, which recently released in 2021, does have the accurate damaged teeth. Moving on to our third entry for the day, let's talk about the British police cars from the end of Cars 2, a topic that piqued my interest the other day after I reviewed one of them, Scott Spark. In 2013, Mattel released 2 British police cars, Doug Speedcheck in a 2-pack with Palace Danger Finn McMissile, and Mark Wheelson. Now, Doug was painted all black with some blue and white checkered designs, and Mark was painted more of a gray with yellow and blue checkers, which are much larger. So, we had 2 different types of British police cars. Then, in 2015, they released 2 more. Scott Spark, who used the same color scheme as Doug, although he's supposed to be his own separate character and has a different expression on his diecast, and Siren Carburini, who's the same, but for Mark Wheelson. He uses the same paint job as Mark Wheelson, is supposed to be his own separate character, and has his own separate facial expression. Despite this, Mattel decided to give Scott Spark the exact same diecast artwork as Doug Speedcheck, and give Siren Carburini the exact same artwork as Mark Wheelson. Despite the fact that they're supposed to be different characters, they really cheaped out here. The diecasts are all different, but the artwork is the same. And you know what? I said in my review of Scott Spark that it was really difficult to tell all of the police cars apart. Yeah, Mattel's definitely not helping me with that. Up next, let's discuss a change in the packaging for Deluxes. In 2008, the Deluxe line was first introduced under the name Mega Size, and it, like all other singles, 2-packs, and other releases, featured a J-hook design as part of the packaging, which means that you could easily take the cars off of the pegs at the store without, having to take off all the other ones. You could just lift them up and slide them off. But in 2019, this was changed to a closed hook design instead, meaning that, again, you'd have to take off all of the other cars in front of them to get the Deluxe you want. Now, I'm not sure why exactly this happened. Maybe it was cheaper, maybe it had something to do with the Thailand switchover, but if that was the case, I'm not sure why it started happening at the beginning of 2019 instead of mid-2018 when Thailand started making diecasts. The strange thing to me is the fact that while the Deluxes still to this day now use that closed hook design, the singles, 2-packs, and other carded releases still use the J-hook design. I just think it's kind of odd that they only changed that for the Deluxes, but honestly, I'm more than okay with that. I don't want to have to knock over every single car in front just to get one in the back. I'm bad enough at not dropping cars as it is. But he's one of my personal favorite Cars 1 racers. For our next two entries, let's talk about some weird errors and inconsistencies with Cars Multipacks. Up first, we're going to go way back to 2007 to talk about the Cruise Night 6-pack, which included Mater, Sheriff, Doc, Sally, Cruisin' McQueen, and finally, Purple Ramon. However, in the scene of the movie that this pack was based off of course the Cruisin' scene, Ramon isn't in his purple paint job and is instead in his hydraulic Ramon paint job. No, we're not bringing back this joke from last episode. No hydraulic count, no! Anyway, Hydraulic Ramon was first released in 2007, so it's strange that this pack didn't include him considering the fact that he's the accurate Ramon. Maybe this multi-pack came out before Hydraulic Ramon was released, I'm not too sure about that, but even if this pack does predate the release of Hydraulic Ramon, it's still an inaccurate pack because the Ramon is still wrong. On the subject of the wrong cars being put in multi-packs, the 2012 Radiator Springs Race 7-pack strangely includes Ferrari fan Luigi and Guido. Now this is based off of the Radiator Springs Grand Prix race at the end of Cars 2, which features Luigi and Guido in a bunch of Lightning McQueen memorabilia very similar to their Ferrari fan designs. In 2014, these versions of Luigi and Guido were released as 95 fan Luigi and Guido, who were a super chase, like I said, in the 2014 Diecast line. But here, I guess they decided to cheap out and instead re-released the Ferrari fan version of Luigi and Guido instead of the accurate ones that appeared in the movie. Something that I find really interesting about this pack is the fact that it's actually the last release of Ferrari fan Luigi and Guido, as Mattel lost the rights to make Ferrari-themed merchandise back in 2014 when they ended their contract with Ferrari. Now this next one is really clever. So clever that I didn't even realize it until now, over a decade after the pack's original release. Two packs in the early days of the Cars Diecast line were called Movie Moments and would feature two cars that appeared together on screen, and instead of using their normal artworks, they would use a screenshot from the movie of the two of them together. However, in one of these cases, the Tumbleweed McQueen and Doc Hudson 2-pack, they actually edited the screenshot to feature Doc. In the movie, when Lightning has the Tumbleweed on top of him, it's only for a few seconds, and he's all alone in the shot because Doc is facing him. He's not next to him like we see here. So, it seems that they took a screenshot of Doc from another part of the movie and edited him in here next to Lightning so that they could be together on the artwork. I think it was a pretty clever way to work around the issue of Tumbleweed McQueen not being next to Doc in the movie. I think it was really smart. Now, as far as I know, this is the only Movie Moments 2-pack that did this. I haven't really looked into if any of the other ones have edited their images, but if you guys know of any other cases of this, definitely let me know in the comments. But look, I know what you guys have been thinking throughout all 8.5 previous episodes of this series. Yeah, that's cool and all, Ty, but what about the color of Lightning McQueen's shovel? Well, don't worry, I'm finally here to answer your calls. When Lightning McQueen is shown destroying the road with a shovel so that he can do a better job at paving it again, his shovel is clearly yellow. But for some strange, unknown reason, his diecast and even the artwork for his diecast feature a gray shovel instead. There's really not that much to say about this one, it's just strange, and it's even stranger to see that the artwork is inaccurate as well. Up next, let's talk about a 2-pack. Now to me, this 2-pack always made sense. I thought that these two cars went very well together in the 2-pack, and having them be together made perfect sense. Despite this, and despite the fact that I think most people agree with me when I say that, these two cars actually never appeared together on screen. The two cars I'm talking about are none other than the King and Cars 3 Jeff Gorvette, who were released in a 2-pack together back in 2017 to go alongside the release of Cars 3. Now, like I said, these two actually never appear on screen together, but I think it's a perfectly fine 2-pack. I think it's a very good 2-pack, and Jeff is still exclusive to it to this day. But still, I think it makes perfect sense as a 2-pack, as they are both characters from previous Cars movies who came back in Cars 3 for small cameo roles. You know, they were both former racers and friends of Lightning who briefly appeared in Cars 3, and were both featured at the Florida 500 race. Again, though, despite this, the two of them were never on screen together in the movie. Now, for the final entry of this episode, as I usually do, I'm going to be visiting a different Cars toy line that isn't the normal Mattel Diecast line. Let's revisit the world of Cars Lego sets. Now, the Cars Lego sets really aren't the most accurate. They don't really strive for accuracy compared to other Lego lines like Star Wars or Marvel. I'm sorry, that was a bad example. There, that's better. They don't usually strive for accuracy like a lot of other Lego lines, especially not in the Cars 3 Lego Juniors line, as Lego Juniors is a line meant for younger kids with simpler builds. Even less accurate to the movies are the builds of the Lego Duplo sets, which again, I let it slide. It's Lego Duplo. It's for very, very young kids. It's not supposed to be this perfect representation of what you see in the movie. So, for today's final topic, I'm not going to be discussing an error with the set, the build of the set itself. Instead, I'm going to be discussing an error with one of the cars included. Lego Duplo set 5815 Flo's V8 Cafe had a total of 32 pieces, a yellow Flo's V8 Cafe, but again, we'll let it slide, and included Sally, Doc Hudson, and Lightning McQueen, who, despite being in his Cruisin' McQueen paint job, still has his spoiler. Of course, in the movie, when Lightning is in that paint job, he doesn't have his spoiler, but here, they kind of cheaped out, and they didn't make a new mold for Lightning without his spoiler. Despite this being Lego, since it's Duplo, the whole top of the car was just one piece, so the spoiler was not removable. Definitely kind of a cheap move, and kind of unfortunate. Honestly, in my opinion, he just looks kind of off without, the missing spoiler. It just looks kind of weird having that spoiler there. Anyway, though, guys, this has been 10 more Weird Disney Cars Diecast Errors and Inconsistencies, Episode 8. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. If you have any errors or inconsistencies you'd like to see me discuss, definitely leave them in the comments. I'll make sure to check them out, and maybe I'll discuss them in a future episode. Bye now.